Hello and welcome to this next section of the video. Andy here. In this section for this document, we're going to be describing various partnership activities that are common in the Web3 space. Of course, this can include the most obvious, which is integration partnerships, but it can also include everything from co-marketing to hackathons, boot camps, tutorials, and a whole lot more fun stuff. The idea here is that by being able to set something of a shopping list for ourselves to consider what do we have available, we can assess what's simple and easy for us from a resource requirement standpoint to be able to offer a partnership, as well as what might provide the most value for different projects and contacts that we're wanting to build a relationship with. So that way we can be as tactical as possible in choosing the most effective systems and strategies to close profitable deals. In this case here, I'm not going to list out every single item. More so, I want to discuss how it might look whenever we actually engage in a conversation with a partnership group. So that way it can be used as some brainstorming ideas for potentially either some other objectives or initiatives that we can come up with, or perhaps we can build out systems to help to facilitate a more streamlined process to deliver these items. I'll start off with integration partnerships, because of course this would be basically any Ethereum project that is wanting to be able to either access liquidity on the Solana network, or someone who wants to be able to access Solana network as a scalability option. Of course, you have the parallel processing and significantly cheaper gas fees through Solana that would be a benefit to basically any partnership. Yet, even though from even though it would seem to be a benefit for any Ethereum project, there's going to be some challenges along the way, specifically when it comes down to the integration's complexity. For example, I noticed that as of a certain period ago, ERC 721 assets weren't available through the Neon EVM proxy yet. On top of that, I know that different projects, they want to know more information about how is the data being indexed and how can they integrate that into their own systems. Security is also going to be a question that different projects have. So it's something that as we begin to onboard different partnerships, we should definitely take a keen look at what types of projects are we bringing in and how can we compound our effects towards that. So perhaps if we find ourselves interacting with a whole lot of DeFi platforms that are looking to be able to expand the liquidity offerings for their application, we can make it to where we can then associate with other projects and show how we can provide them with similar features. And then ideally, we want to diversify the different types of projects we're bringing on. So one of the big activities that could be huge for Ethereum integration would be the gaming projects, to be able to get us a little bit closer to bringing on more tangible user adoption. And on top of that, the Solana ecosystem just has a lot of really cool features that makes it optimal for gaming. Now, of course, DeFi, gaming, and governance and DAOs, this is just a few of the literally dozens of different categories that's available within the Web3 space. The main idea here is that we can be as strategic as possible in who we're going after by being intentional in what types of products we connect with as a business development team, as well as looking at things from a resourcing standpoint to make sure it's as efficient as possible. Now, influencer relationships are also a very useful way that we would be able to expand our reach across different ecosystems. This usually looks as simple as reaching out to an influencer group after doing some research to find out what types of value and content they provide to their community at large, and then simply find a way that we can piggyback off of that. In our case here, there's a whole lot of opportunity because the secret is out about Solana. Yet a lot of folks do still have some trepidation, some anxiety around, maybe they don't know how to code in Rust, or maybe they understand that the accounts-based architecture is pretty complicated, and that might scare them away a little bit. So by being able to expose ourselves to the major influencers within the EVM-based ecosystem influencers, it could allow us to be able to gain the trust of folks that already have a very large following, while also being able to allow us to cast a wider net to bring in more traffic to our contact management system. Now, of course, we're going through different events and hackathons, and sponsorships is a major part to this. I won't talk too much about that because it's something where when it comes down to the strategies that go into having an effective event or an effective hackathon, that could quite frankly be its own document in its right. What I do think is going to be useful to talk about and discuss, though, is technical collaborations. This is something that in my research, I was pretty surprised to see that very few projects consistently leverage and take advantage of. Now, Chainlink would be a shining example of who's doing a great job of getting themselves out there. And I think that the results speak for themselves with over 1,000 different partnerships all across various different ecosystems. They definitely set the gold standard. And part of that is by setting up not just having AMAs and lives to be able to discuss what their technology does and how it works, but they offer tutorials where they collaborated with developer training companies like Clever Programmer and Morales. They set up demonstrations where they showcase exactly what their technology does, how it works, and they were talking about it from a high level. It can help bring people further into the funnel to be able to go and start to build these systems into their own decentralized applications. Another thing that I saw that I don't think is utilized nearly enough, but once again, Chainlink as well as Solana do a great job of this, is boot camps. Being able to have something where a developer can basically code along in a live environment that maybe it spans over the course of a couple of days, or perhaps it's a weekend warrior type situation. People can sign up, schedule themselves to be a part of this, and we build out something that a developer can add to their portfolio. This way, we can be seen as an ecosystem that's providing value to the technical community while also being able to have material be as accessible as possible for new folks to join in. Polkadot actually had a really great example of this, where they had they had a collaboration between multiple different projects that came together to each build a certain piece of what would end up being a pretty basic application. And then Chainlink, of course, they fit into all of these things. They've done all sorts of boot camps where maybe it's to build a wallet or to build a DeFi, to build a DeFi swaps process, or to build some kind of a cool thing that developers can show off to their associates. Now, some more marketing related type, co-marketing related collaborations that are available to us is to do collaborative blog articles. So maybe there's a certain topic that we have a certain level of expertise in and somebody else has a level of expertise in. Well, as opposed to simply doing a partnership announcement doc, which is usually super basic, here's what they do, here's what we do, we're now partnered together, fins. Like, it's so 2020. On the other hand, what we can start putting together is think about what value do we provide to the ecosystem as a project at Neon Labs? What value do they provide as a potential partnership? And what can other users of the community gain from that? From there, to be able to have an AMA or a live that piggybacks off of the blog article, which is basically used as a top of funnel lead gen source to attract more people to dive down the rabbit hole of learning about a collaborative partnership and our individual solutions. Ideally, this gets paired with having various different types of digital events, again, whether they're boot camps, tutorials, or some kind of a demonstration. So that way, then we can keep people as engaged as possible in our ecosystem, as opposed to getting distracted with other ecosystems in the space. Now, something else that I've used previously in the Polkadot ecosystem that I haven't seen a whole heck of a lot of is technical guides or documentation. These are excellent ways to be able to connect with a group that we may want to do some type of a partnership deal with. Because a lot of times the integration side to it is the bottleneck to closing the more impactful deals. Because every project has one of the same problems, which is the roadmap is massive. There's a ton of features they have to build out, but they have a limited amount of time and they already have pressure to do the things that they already have on their trajectory. So by adding in an additional integration that doesn't feel like it's as necessary as possible, it can be tough sometimes to get buy-in from the technical leadership team of those partnerships. So a way that we can get our foot in the door is by offering to provide some type of technical documentation that can help support their developer ecosystem to have access to some type of feature functionality or some type of innovation that maybe they wouldn't have previously. In the Polkadot ecosystem, a way that we implemented this was there was a storage project a decentralized storage project where they had a pretty large reach, but they didn't have very much of an indexing or analysis solutions. So what we did is we put together some documentation with our indexing solution to be able to allow people to see how they can not only store their data, but how they can also gain more useful analytics and insights from it. from our side, it took very little work because we already had our own documentation that showed how to be able to plug into a different substrate-based project and dive into the data from there. So all we did was refactor the documentation we already wrote, put the partner name at the top of it, made sure the code was specific to that partner. And in this way, it didn't require very heavy integration engineering labor hours. Instead, it made it to where we were able to offer a ton of value upfront to this team, which inevitably ended up leading them to transferring from a different indexing solution to our indexing solution because we had been able to nurture that relationship, first getting our foot in the door and then being able to actually build something stronger from there. So there's a lot of different ways we can put this together. I guess one of the ones that I had skipped over is the grants consideration and support. Ideally, we're proactive in deciding who we want to go after and what type of relationship we would like to have with our partnerships. So if we see that a project in the Ethereum ecosystem would make an optimal candidate, we should reach out to them and encourage them to apply for our grants program. I'll go into much more information about this during the grants section of this document. But basically, it's something that while developers realize that there are a ton of grant opportunities available, most developers haven't experienced that full process. They're busy. They're dealing with the stuff that, dealing with solving big, juicy problems in the industry. And it just seems like a risk to take the time to apply for a program that they may end up not even getting accepted for. So if we can encourage project by showing, first doing our diligence on our side and seeing, are they even a reasonable candidate? And if so, begin to nurture that relationship, that encouragement, and even just having something like a technical support chat or having some type of a feedback loop with the folks from our team could help to make them feel more comfortable joining and participating with our programs, and of course, achieving the milestones to closure. So if this sounds interesting, then definitely drop some comments of what other ideas you have. There are a ton of opportunities inside of this. I just listed off a few examples that I've personally experienced and that I've found aren't being used in other projects. My guess is that the reason for that is because it takes time and you have to be very organized to be able to maintain the task and project management in addition to everything else that's happening, which is the point of the CRM. So in this next section, while there's a whole lot of benefits to be gained from a CRM program, there are also their fair share of challenges. And we're going to dive into that, about what risks and what challenges are being faced when an organization implements a CRM program and how we can mitigate those risks, as well as make it to where by understanding them, we can protect ourselves from potentially being held back in the future as we scale. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye for now, y'all.